you ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon. You're listening to us on the Broadway Podcast Network or watching us on Broadway World. I'm excited. It's a snowy 9 o'clock day. I'm stuck in the Midwest till I come home next week to New York. When I get home to New York, people, you need to go see this next show that we're talking about. We're talking about Still the Play. Have you been in love and then years later wondered maybe it can happen again? What's this? You have me here in my thinking, I'm getting married and I met my man, and then a year later I found him. Can you imagine 30 years later? Well, Mark Moses is here. Lia Romeo is here. We're going to talk all about it. Mark, welcome to the show. Lia, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love. Mark, Lia, you're romantic in your heart.
I think Lia is.
There are ways that I am and there are ways that I'm not. Yeah.
Well, I read about when you talked about in the press release, this show, it had the impetus of this seemed to be very personal about marriage, man. And I feel that we have good relationships that end, relationships that come about. Where did you get the idea to do this show?
Yeah, it is very personal. I was married to someone who I cared very deeply about, but also, disagreed with politically. And there were also other issues, but that was a big issue. And when we first got married, it felt like, that's okay. That's a thing we can work with. And over time, it started to feel less and less okay. And it started to feel like more of a problem. And so I was trying to figure out, what to do about that and how to navigate through that. And writing the play came out of those questions.
Wow. So, Mark, welcome back to the stage here in New York City.
Thank you.
What is it like? Who is your character? And tell us about what your journey's been like so far with the show.
Well, I have a hard time remembering my character because his name is Mark as well.
Oh, that is hard.
It's been great. I've been back in New York from Los Angeles for about 6 years now. And it's the whole experience has been terrific. We were down at the Sheen Center, and the play is wonderful. Lia can tell you all about it. I look at this play, I think it's kind of like an onion with the characters where you have all these layers and you sort of peel one off. Again, and it goes back in their time for 30 years. They knew each other 30 years ago. And if you peel the layers enough, sometimes it even brings a tear to your eye. So it is sort of romantic and lovely. And Melissa Gilbert is playing Helen. And it's really a wonderful play. I hope everybody gets to see it this time around, because I know there was 8 months ago they did it before. So I hope they come down to the Sheen Center and see it now.
Yes, you have to come down to the Sheen Center and listen, people. It's Valentine's Day week. It's February. It's a month of love.
Yeah.
It's a perfect date night. And the tickets, Lia, you got to go talk to your producers, because you can get the best seats in the house for under $100, which you can't see in New York City. You can't see a show for that price.
Yeah, I feel like it's very reasonable for, very high quality show and great production values, and the design is beautiful and the actors are amazing. So, yeah.
And it's in a great area. It's got it's a wonderful area down where the Sheen Theater is. So
yeah,
we're loving it, and it's a terrific show. And when you think about it, you always wonder, could you get back together with your high school boyfriend or girlfriend or anything like that? And you think about when you meet up with people, how much has changed in between that time. And this play talks a lot about that and other issues that are facing us right now. So
it's timely. I read about it, and it's as timely as ever. And when you talk about politics and all the things that come together, and oh man, I'm thinking about high school. That it will give you nostalgia. It will give you all of the feels to have prolific careers.
She's probably retired. Well, she has her own island upstate, but I think, when you think about all the stuff that's being rerun on all the streaming services, and oftentimes someone will come up and it'll be their first time they've seen something like Mad Men or Desperate Housewives or something that has been on television, plus all the films and stuff. It is interesting today that someone can actually watch something again for the first time.
Yeah, so we've all grown up watching them. What was it like when you got to see them take your characters and do their interpretation of your work?
Yeah, Mark and Melissa are amazing. And I was so excited to hear that each of them, was on board, because I was a fan of both of theirs, before they came to this project. And so it's one of those, like, playwright dream kind of moments, like, oh, I get to work with this actor who I saw on TV, years before I even conceived of this play. And then, I was just sitting in my little office room, like writing some things. And now these like very, eminent actors are bringing them to life on a stage. So it's been really exciting.
And the play has, there's an aspect of the play where, depending on who plays the character, there's going to be differences. I mean, it would be hard not to, I think, to make every performance and every time this play is done, not have differences. Although there's similarities, of course, because Lia wrote this play, but the actors that come to it, once you start to do the play, you realize a lot of things can shift depending on who's doing it. So it's very interesting in that respect. And a few days ago, a couple of Frenchmen were in the audience, and they were telling me, and Lia probably can add to this, that they were there to do a French version of your play in Avignon.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize they had come to see it.
One of them was an interpreter, and the other guy might have been the producer. And I just thought how interesting that this play, that people from France thought this play also would translate into issues that they are facing as well.
It is really interesting. Yeah. There's a French translation in the works for the Avignon Festival, and then possibly a Paris run. So that's fun for me. I haven't seen my work abroad before, so that's exciting. I didn't realize they'd come to see it though, so I'm glad to hear that.
They did, yeah.
I had a meeting with them actually.
So there you go. Still, you got your tickets. The show is running. It's limited, so you got to get your tickets because it's not going to be here forever. You're not going to get to see Mark and Melissa forever, so you better run and grab a ticket while you're here. Mark, while we're here, I would be remiss to not talk about and go through some of you talked about Housewives, and you talked about shows like Mad Men and Homeland, and I was looking at Mama's House too, and I was looking at, you go all the way back to Platoon and all of the work that you've done with Oliver Stone and multiple movies with that.
Well, I actually was living back in New York City back then when I met Oliver. And then I ended up going to Los Angeles and connecting with him again, and then went over to the Philippines. And it was my first film that won the Academy Award. I thought it's all going to be really easy from here, but it was difficult.
Well, I was looking 150 something IMDb credits for different films and television shows, and thousands of episodes of television. And I was curious to know, what's it like to jump up on stage where you get to be the same character every single night versus being on a set for months and doing different scenes, or being a character over an arc of a television show? What's the different muscle as an actor?
Well, I think sometimes you follow paths in your life because you make certain choices. And when I was in New York and went to NYU, I was just doing theater, and I started doing that maybe for 6 years or so. And then all of a sudden, my agents thought I should go to California, and I had kids. So when you do that, not that you can't have kids and do theater, it's just more difficult. So these are the changes that happen. But when I was out in the West Coast, I would go to the Old Globe and the Mark Taper Forum and do that sort of thing. But this has been great because it's brought me back to some of the roots of the reasons that I started to act. And it takes the dust has to come off just at the beginning, but then you sort of get used to it and you go, okay, I remember this again and how it is. But it is exciting. We've got live audiences every night. The audiences are really enthralled with the play still. So we are hoping that they all get down there before the end of March.
So get down there, get your tickets and see it, and then you can stream all of Mark's. If you can go to if you start watching his movies and television shows now, you'll get done by the last show that they do. So hurry up, watch.
Maybe not.
Mark, is this you? And the risk of making a mistake again on this interview?
Yeah.
Is this you? Were you in the Golden Girls episode?
That was me. That was obviously a long time ago. You can see how young I am, and that was when I first got out to Los Angeles, and I got to work with these ladies. And quite frankly, I get a lot of people have seen this, especially stewards on airplanes or flight attendants. You went on this show, and it was very close to theater back then because there was a full audience there, and you did the show on the stage, so it was very close to theater, and all the actresses that were on that show had done theater at one time or other.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting, and they were all such professionals, and one of the few shows at the time where there were older women actually in starring parts.
Well, this little gay boy here is done. That's it. That's the holy grail. Desperate Housewives and the Golden Girls. Good night. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Leah, you're talking about you went to Juilliard. You went to Juilliard, which, I mean, come on, people. So when you went to Juilliard, what was your experience there, and how did you learn? We have a lot of students who watch this show. So what was your experience with what you learned in Juilliard to doing what you do now? Is the education that you got part of the fundamentals of what you do? Is it important?
It is important. It's very interesting, actually, because I had an interesting path in that I got an MFA in playwriting from Rutgers in my 20s, like when I was much younger, and that was great. Lee Blessing was running that program then, and he was wonderful. And then, I was writing plays and working regionally and off-Broadway indie theater for, 15 years. And, had a lot of productions, but small productions, and then got into Juilliard, much later. And I do feel like I learned a lot there. The faculty there are amazing, and my cohort of other playwrights are fantastic. And we were all doing very different kinds of work. So it was just really fun to read everyone's work every week and see the different ways that people are writing plays. And it was really helpful in those ways. And I feel like it was a little bit of a career launchpad in terms of, getting my work more attention and getting it to a wider audience.
Well, I'm floored by people who write, because just the idea of that blinking cursor and that blank piece of paper gives me such anxiety. Do you have a set schedule? Do you write when the inspiration hits? Do you keep hours to write? What do you keep a notepad next to your bed and wake up with ideas? What's your journey to the written word?
I write when I can. I have a 5-year-old and I have several day jobs. So there's a lot in my life, and it's always sort of a question of piecing it together. And I definitely don't write every day. I have aspirations to write every day, but it definitely doesn't happen. And then there are days when I start writing and it's going well, and I sort of neglect all the other things that I should be doing because I'm like, oh, I'm in something. I need to, follow this. So I am not a person who subscribes to the idea that, you have to have a schedule. I'm also not someone who subscribes to the myth of creativity that it just descends on you. I think writing, like any other kind of work, you put your butt in the chair and put in the time, and eventually something happens, and maybe it's terrible for a while, and then you rewrite it until it gets good. So that's kind of how I approach it.
How long have you been working on this piece in particular? Because that's the part that is amazing to me.
So this play had a fairly quick journey from first draft to first production. I wrote the first draft while I was at Juilliard in the spring of 2022. And then it was produced at Dorset Theatre Festival in the summer of 2023. And it had a few readings before that. So, yeah, it was a pretty quick process. And that doesn't necessarily sound like a quick process, but I also have many plays that have been in development and having readings for 7 years and are still waiting for their first production. So yeah, it felt like, that went pretty quickly. And then we had the New York run about 9 months after that. And then the second New York run, 8 months after that. So the play has momentum, and it has kept going in ways that, I would not have anticipated. It's exciting.
It's going to keep going, as you see, and it will keep going. Mark, with all the work that you've done and all the amazing directors, we were talking about Oliver Stone and all of the things that you've done. You have quite the director with Adrienne here at this show up still. What was the process of getting the intimacy between the two of you actors in front of an audience and getting these words up off the table and on your feet? What did she do? What was it like to be in the room?
Well, she had been with the show since its development in, was it New Hampshire or Vermont?
It was Vermont, yeah.
It was Vermont. So she had started from the beginning. And so I think she was able to, she had explored a lot of the play and was able to pass on a lot of the knowledge from what she learned about it. Not that that was necessarily, it was new to us. So we still had to go through certain aspects of trying to figure out how the play moved, the shape of the play, aspects of the unknown, which were essentially the audience's reaction. And the thing about this play, because it is political, in part of it is political, is that we get a reaction every night that's different. We don't know what's going to happen in the news today or tomorrow, or what we're being told. And people have all these ideas now about what's going on in our country. So the play, there's an aspect of the play that makes that very exciting. So each night, we're not quite sure kind of the reactions we're going to get. So that makes live theater really important right now, and exciting and interesting and fun. So, I mean, so Adrienne has done, she told me at one time she did 30 new plays. So she's done far more new plays than I've done. I've done a lot of plays that, guys that were dead like Shakespeare did, but she's done a lot of new plays, and she's done a wonderful job with this.
Well, I heard, reading about the play and not seeing it yet until I get back home, because I will be there, is that Melissa's character, Helen, has a secret. So there's a secret. There's something that's going to happen in the show that, as you just alluded to, Mark, is going to make us.
Yeah, they all have secrets, and they all have things that they carry around with them for years, and in many ways in this play, it's the first time they've ever discussed them. So it makes it exciting what two people can bring up in each other. And that doesn't happen when you walk down the street and someone says, "Hey, where's the best place to get a cup of coffee?" or something like that. There's a bond between these two people, and it's sort of rediscovered. And with that comes the show.
Oh, it comes the show. Lia, after people have seen this, have people reached out to you? I know we live in a very politically divisive time, and a lot of people, you could go on social media and see the fighting, and families that fight, relationships that fight, friendships that are divided based on politics. Have people seen this and given their 2 cents or talked to you about this in their own lives?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a lot of conversations with audience members who have said "Oh, this echoes something that I'm experiencing," because I think, almost everyone right now has people in their lives, not necessarily romantic relationships, but people who, are on the opposite side of this divide, which is very big and continuing to grow. And, obviously in New York, Mark was talking about the audience reaction, and in New York and in Vermont, it's been liberal audiences. And so there's a certain, there are certain lines that I reliably know are going to get a certain kind of reaction. And I would be very interested to see it in a more conservative area. I think theater audiences are generally going to be liberal, even in conservative states probably, but I would be interested to see it with more of a purple audience and see how it lands there.
Ooh, and I'm sure it's going to be, if it's going to Europe, it's going to be all across this country. So we've got to stay up to speed. Mark, I don't know about your character yet, but if you have a character that you have to play that has various views and different viewpoints, how important is it to you as the actor, the nerdy actor behind the scenes work, to try to find your way to the character and their thought? You can't judge the character when you're up there on stage. So what do you do?
Well, I'm playing a character which there's been times where I've had a hard time justifying what he says on stage, but there's also a few times where I'm in agreement. And because he's, obviously he's not obviously, when you see the play, you'll understand he's not an extremist by any means. But on the other hand, someone who's not even a little bit to the right can be very offensive to someone on the left. So he walks a tightrope during this play, and it's interesting to see. I even had this conversation with my son the other day. One of my boys, not the other one, but the other one. One of them's a little more conservative than the other one. So in these situations, when you're talking with people, it's a lot easier to argue with them online, say, than it is in person. So when you're having a discussion with a person, any person across the country about politics, people will be more polite face to face than they are across media. And in this instance, there's a lot more at stake than that. So that's what makes the play exciting.
Well, you got me thinking. You got me thinking about what these characters are like.
That's good, because I think people leave this production with a lot of thoughts, and they're able to go out and have a drink and discuss still. and discuss what's being talked about on stage and in our lives right now. So it makes the play contemporary and exciting.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Leah, is that you put something together that's as timely as ever. You can't read the future and see what the political divides were going to be. I know when you wrote it, they were starting, but now we are in as divided a place as I can remember. So this is something that people need to see, and maybe it will spark a conversation in their house.
I hope so. Yeah, it does feel like, I mean, it was very interesting thinking about, how does this play land in the Trump era? Because it was a little bit of a different world the first couple of times that we did it. And I have updated the script, to reflect the present moment. And yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, it's more timely than ever because, the world is getting scarier to those of us, who are liberal, and the divide that we feel is just getting larger and larger.
Well, I appreciate you both spending time with us. I've had conversations with my friends about, would you date someone who is on the opposite political divide? Would you be able to put past certain things? Would you? And what's the line? What's the line for you? What's the line for each other? And it's such a topical conversation. And I know I had a friend of mine who started dating, and they met online, and she was like, I don't know when to ask. Who did he vote for? It matters to, these are questions that people are talking about. So the work you're doing is in
I'm surprised there's not a check mark on Tinder,
Yeah, literally.
A lot of people
Is
put
there?
it in their profiles.
Yeah, I would think so these days,
So I'm here for it. And Leah, where can we find your other work, or where it's going to be? We can go to your website.
Yes, that is my website, Lia Romeo Writer. I have an Off-Broadway show coming up next year in the fall, and this one, and I don't know what else. That's what I've got on the docket at the moment.
More to come. Everyone's got to go see Still the Play. That's the first thing. And then Mark, we could follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, there was something I think on last night. Of course, I'm such a flake, I missed it. But there was an episode of The Hunting Party I did. So it's a new show on NBC, and I play a bad guy.
So you can see him.
I've done that before.
You've done that before. You're classic. You can follow the Mark Moses on Instagram, and then you can flick the channels and he'll pop up. Or you could see him live and in person and go see Still the Play.
Even better.
Even better.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for taking time this morning and spending time with me. I'm so grateful to talk to you both, and congratulations.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.